Hello and welcome to the truth about the deep state. Unfortunately, we've got communication problems again. This time it's working. Skype is working on both sides of the Atlantic. Unfortunately, it's just that me and Betty haven't been able to link up. Betty's been busy, I've been busy, and we're 6 hours apart, and we just haven't been able to link up. So what I've done is I've got some of Betty's videos of Let's Chat with Betty Washam, which you can go and see on YouTube, and I've put together this little video just so you can get a flavour of what we're looking at and what's been in the news. Betty's first report is talking about Hillary's emails. Here we go again. This time they've been hacked by China. As we know, Hillary had a private server and she was running state emails through her own server, and let's face it, it couldn't have been very secure. So now they've come out and told us the Chinese have hacked it. Betty, what's this story all about?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it is that time. Let's chat with Betty Washam. So, whenever I came to you guys a couple of months ago, whenever Lisa Page went behind closed doors talking to the Congress, and she said that China was the one responsible for hacking the emails, well, you can't debunk it now because it is true. China responsible for hacking Clinton's private email server, report says. Clinton's emails were captured in real time by the Chinese firm. Let's see what happens there. A Chinese-owned company within operations nestled within Washington, D.C., were allegedly responsible for hacking Hillary Clinton's private server throughout her term as Secretary of State and obtained nearly all her emails, according to an explosive report from the Daily Scholar Richard Pollock. Clinton's emails were captured in real time by the Chinese firm as she sent and received communications and documents via her personal server, sources claim, who also says the hacking was part of an intelligence operation. The code, which was embedded in the server, was written by the Chinese firm. The code then generated an instant courtesy copy for nearly all her emails and then forwarded to the Chinese company, according to sources Daily Caller. Look at that evil pedivore bitch. Can't wait for you to go to Gitmo or Pronapon. According to ZH, during a July 12th House Committee on Judiciary hearing, Texas Republican Louis Gohmert disclosed that the Intelligence Community Inspector General ICIG found that virtually all the Clinton emails from her homebrew server were funneled to a foreign entity. Gohmert did not reveal the entity's identity. However, he said it wasn't Russia. A government staff official briefed on the ICIG's findings told the Daily Caller that the Chinese firm which hacked Clinton's emails operates in Washington's Northern Virginia suburbs, and that is not a technology firm, but a front group for the Chinese government. Warnings ignored. Two ICIG officials, investigator Frank Rockner and attorney Janet McMillan, repeatedly warned FBI officials of the Chinese intrusion during several meetings, according to the Daily Caller, citing a former intelligence officer with expertise in cybersecurity issues who was briefed on the matter. They don't pay attention. Among the FBI officials warned was Peter Strzok, who was fired earlier this month from the agency over an anti-Trump text message he sent while spearheading an investigation of Trump's 2016 campaign. Strzok did not act on the ICIG's warning, according to Gohmert, who added that Strzok and three other top FBI officials knew about an anomaly on Clinton's server. In other words, Strzok, while investigating Clinton's email server, completely ignored the fact that the most of Clinton's emails were sent to a foreign entity, while IG Horowitz simply did not want to know about it. The Intelligence Committee Inspector General ICIG found an anomaly on Hillary Clinton's emails going through their private server, and when they had done the forensic analysts, they found that her emails, every single one except for over 30,000, were going to an address that was not on the distribution list. Republican Representative Louis Gohmert of Texas said during a hearing with the FBI official Peter Strzok Daily Caller. We don't need to listen to what they say about that. And then there's that. And there's that nasty pedivore. I'd like to just rip her guts out of herself. Gohmert, it was going to be an unauthorized source that was a foreign entity unrelated to Russia. Strzok admitted to meeting with Rucknor, but said he couldn't remember the specific content of their discussion. Yeah, because they get, amnesia and stuff all of a sudden. It's really funny how that works. The forensic examination was done by the ICIG, and they can document that Gohmert said, but you were given that information and you did nothing with it. Meanwhile, 4 separate attempts were also made to notify DOJ Inspector General Michael Horace to brief him on the massive scrutiny breach. However, Horace never returned the call. Internal pushback. In November of 2017, IG McCullough, an Obama appointee, revealed to Fox News that he received pushback when he tried to tell former DNI James Clapper about the foreign entity which had Clinton's emails and other enormities. Instead of being embraced for trying to expose an illegal act, 7 senators, including Dianne Feinstein, wrote a letter accusing him of politicizing the issue. It's absolutely irrelevant whether something is marked classified. It is the character of the information, he said. Really? Okay. Glad you know our laws. McCullough said that from the point forward, he received only criticism and adversely posture from Congress when he tried to rectify the situation. I expected to be embarrassed and protected, he said, adding that a Hill staffer chided him for failing to consider the political consequences of the information he was blowing the whistle on. Fox News. So please leave your comments in the section below. And also I have a really cool merchandise where we go one, we go all. Have you been cued? I've been cued. All kinds of different things. This has been Let's Chat with Betty Washam. Until next time, we know who hacked our emails now. Sure wasn't the Russians. I'm out.
Betty's next story is one about the Pope. Now, the Pope is in Ireland this week, and he's been tackling the question of child abuse, by the church. This has been going on for years. Betty, why haven't they solved this problem yet? You're looking at the news. What does it say?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it's time. Let's chat with Betty Washam. I am Betty Washam, your host. So there is a lot of things going on surrounding the allegations and the 300 priests and stuff that was outed and their names and everything on sexual harassment. So now they are calling for Pope Francis to resign because he covered it up, which we all know that he was already, before he became Pope, he had already been charged of murder and raping children and things of that nature, but they could never put him in prison. And so was Queen Elizabeth. That is documentation. Okay, so let's go here. Calls for Pope Francis to resign as pedophile ring cover-up exposed. Now, I want to let you guys know I do have a brain injury, and sometimes my words don't come out correctly in my pronunciations and even my reading. So I'm trying to conquer that the best that I can. So if people have something to say, which a lot of times they do, they'll say, did you go to college, did you go to high school? Like, are you an idiot? No, I'm not an idiot. I went to high school and I went to college. So let's continue on. Pope head of the biggest pedophile ring. Okay, so he visits Ireland. The historic papal visit to Ireland has been dashed with controversy as a letter published by the high-level Vatican official has further exposed Pope Francis. Oh, there's the Trump train. Okay, I think it's gone. for covering up child abuse within the Catholic Church. The pontiff faces calls for his resignation after the bombshell report reveals that Francis was warned about specific members of the clerical pedophile ring in 2013, shortly after he became pope, but chose to cover up the information rather than to act on it. The 11-page letter was penned by Archbishop Carlo Maria Bagino, who called on him to quit over global scandal that is still enveloping the church. In the damning expose, Vigano says Francis knew that a prominent cardinal was abusing children in the U.S. for years, but covered it up with a conspiracy of silence not too dissimilar to the mafia. That's about the truth. It's about how it's been. I'm glad that they're exposing all these pedos. I'm so sick and tired of these nasty, satanic people. Ugh. Sky News reports, as the pontiff ended his historic 2-day visit to Ireland, Archbishop Carlo Maria Bagano called on him to quit over his response to the global scandals still enveloping the church. Francis used a speech at Mass in Phoenix Park in Dublin on Sunday to ask for forgiveness. Sorry, I have a lot of I have a lot of cars. I have a lot of cars that come by where I live, and they're all race cars and stuff like that. So please forgive me for that. It's pretty cool to live around here, though. Committed by members with the role's responsibility in the church, which allegedly includes American Cardinal Theodore McCarrick. The 88-year-old resigned last month over claims of sexual abuse against a 16-year-old boy. Francis accepted McCarrick's resignation as cardinal last month after an internal U.S. investigation found that an accusation he had sexually abused a minor was credible. Archbishop Vigano has said he warned Francis about the allegations shortly after he became pope in 2013. An 11-page statement, the Archbishop compared cover-ups of abuse within the church to a conspiracy of silence not dissimilar from the one that prevails in the mafia. Pope Francis has repeatedly asked for total transparency in the church. Archbishop Bagano, a frequent critic of the Pope, wrote in a letter which was carried by the National Catholic Register and several other conservative media outlets in the U.S. and Italy. In this extremely dramatic moment for the universal church, he must acknowledge his mistakes, and in keeping with the proclaimed principle of zero tolerance, Pope Francis must be the first to get a good example for cardinals and bishops who covered up McCarrick's abuses and resigned along with all of them, he said. The Vatican has not commented on the accusations, which include an assertion that other top officials were warned about McCarrick, one of the highest-ranking figures within the church, as early as 2006. Archbishop Vigano, the PayPal envoy in Washington from 2011 to 2016, timed release of the bombshell letter to coincide with the second day of the World Meeting of Families in Ireland. Francis touched down in Ireland on Saturday morning for what was set to be the highly charged 2-day trip, the first PayPal visit to the country since 1979. The Catholic Church has been vilified in Ireland after 9,000 reported cases of child abuse by priests, and Francis met survivors during his first day in Dublin, during which he repeatedly compared the corruption to human excrement. He also made a speech at Dublin Castle in which he expressed his regret over historical abuse by Catholic priests in the country, and on Sunday he struck much to the same tone. During a morning visit to Knox Shrine, where many Irish Catholics believe the Virgin Mary and other saints were seen in the late 19th century, Francis described the issue of abuse in Ireland as an open wound, and at Mass at Phoenix Park in the afternoon the Pope requested a pardon for their crimes. A pardon for their crimes? We ask for forgiveness for the abuses in Ireland, abuse of power, abuse of conscience, and sexual abuses perpetrated by members with roles of responsibility in the church, he said. Same thing he said back whenever he was convicted of doing what he did to the children back then, and even convicted of murder. In a special way, we ask pardon for all the abuses committed in various types of institutions run by males or female religious and by other members of the church, and we ask for forgiveness for those cases of exploitation through manual work that so many young women and men were subject to. We ask forgiveness. Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar, who described himself as a non-practicing Catholic, also attended the Mass. Ahead of the gathering, he tweeted, "Ireland is a different country to 39 years ago, but this visit has caused us to reflect more deeply on the relationship between Ireland Church brought to Ireland centuries ago." On Saturday, during his welcome speech at Dublin Castle, Mr. I don't even know his name, was unafraid to refer to dark aspects of the history of the Church and condemned the abuse as stains on our state, our society, and also the Church. This is completely disgusting, and I really hope that they can make him resign and he can go to prison for his crimes. Let's see what else I found. Okay, so I found this. Mexican cardinal issues cartel-style threat to pedophile priest accusers. Ooh. High-ranking Mexican cardinal has issued a drug cartel-style threat to victims of clergy child abuse who make accusations against Catholic priests. Speaking to reports, newly appointed Mexican cardinal of Veracruz, Sergio Obsesio Rivera said, "Those who accuse men of the church should be careful because they have long tails that are easily stepped on." Rivera made the disturbing comments in Mexico while giving a speech during a celebration for his former diocese, Cruz now reported. According to the reporters who were present, Cardinal Rivera said still went after the victims, despite acknowledging that the majority of the recent allegations of pedophilia were true. This guy needs to be thrown in prison as well. This is disgusting. Western Journal reports Rivera prefaced his aggressive comments by saying, "I'm here happy to talk about nice things, not about problematic things. It's an accusation that is made, and in some cases, it's true." Okay, so what's the deal? Why are you hiding it, you know? These statements by Rivera were made in Spanish and translated and reported to Crux Now, which describes itself as a news site dedicated to offering the very best in smart, weird, and independent coverage of the Vatican and the Catholic Church. The Cardinal's statement about long tails was rephrased by one of the journalists as being similar to saying that people have skeletons in their own closets. Verba suggested that his words could be interpreted as those who accuse us should have little pain. Rivera also said the accusations make us feel bad and we want to improve. According to Cruz Now, Rivera was made a cardinal by Pope Francis just under 2 months ago, shortly before his controversial comments from early last week. The case being referenced was from August 15th, in which Pennsylvania grand jury found internal documents from 6 Catholic dioceses in Pennsylvania show that more than 300 predator priests have been credibly accused of sexually abusing more than 1,000 child victims, according to CNN. This man is evil, evil, evil. All of them are, pretty much. We believe that the real number of children whose records were lost or who were afraid ever to come forward is in the thousands, the grand jury reported. Priests were raping little boys and girls, and the man of God who was responsible for them not only did nothing, they hid it all. For decades, monsignors, auxiliary bishops, archbishops, cardinals have mostly been protected. Many, including some named in this report, have been promoted. Sickening. The church's methods were described by the grand jury as a playbook for concealing the truth after their practices were identified by FBI agents in DOC files. The report, which was released Tuesday, outlined an investigation into abuse at the hands of clergy that dates back to 1947 and includes 6 DOCs: Allentown, Erie, Greensburg, Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, and Scranton. And it's all over worldwide, so that's not the only ones. In the past, Philadelphia and Altoona, Johnston, Pennsylvania's other 2 dioceses have been subjects of grand jury reports that found similar damaging information about the clergy and bishops in their dioceses. In stark contrast to Rivera's statement, CNN reported that fake news reported that Cardinal Daniel DiNardo, president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, and Bishop Timothy L. Doherty, chair of the Bishops' Committee for the Protection of Children and Young People, were released as a compassionate statement about the recent accusations against the Church. The report of the Pennsylvania grand jury again illustrates the pain of those who have been victims of the crimes of sexual abuse by individual members of our clergy and by those who shielded abusers and so facilitated on evil that continued for years or even decades. As a body of bishops, we are ashamed by and sorry for the sins and omission by the Catholic priests and Catholic bishops. I say throw them all into a piranha pond and we can just watch them happily at least get some kind of pain, the same as what they have done to all the little children and ruined their lives. This has been Let's Chat with Betty Washam. Please leave your comments in the section below. If you have any other questions or anything, you can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on my YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. Also, I have new merchandise out that I would like to tell you that will be in the description below. And I have a Patreon account, a PayPal account, if you would like to help with my channel. There's other ways you can help with my channel as well, and that's just sharing it and subscribing to it. This has been Let's Chat with Betty Washam. Until next time, I'm out.
Well, all I can say is the Roman Catholic Church and sex abuse has been going on for years. It's nothing new. I remember a policeman, an old policeman, retired, was in the force doing documents for North Hampshire police in the 60s, and he said you wouldn't believe the majority of sex offenders are priests and somebody that the family knows. Anyway, that's an aside. Now we go on to our next story. Betty, we've now got mothers selling their children for sex. I don't think there's a more despicable crime than a mother selling her daughter for sex. I just don't believe this. Betty, the story, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it is that time. Let's chat with Betty Washam. I'm your host, Betty Washam. And if you follow me, you know how I feel about child sex trafficking, pedos, pedivores, all of these sick mofo things that these people do. Well, I found something, and it's just as sick. And you know what? I would love to throw this woman in the piranha pond, and too bad I can't do that. But one thing that we hope and pray for is that when she goes to prison, maybe someone will shank her or something. That's my hope and prayer. Anyway, either way, Karma's a bitch, and our Heavenly Father does not agree with what is going on with this. Satan is running rapid, and it's just totally disgusting. So let's go through this and let's see what's up. It says, mother charged with child sex trafficking, disabled daughter. Can you even imagine that? Even imagine. Woman charged Tuesday with second-degree trafficking of a child. Sorry, I'm trying not to cuss. A mother from Missouri, wow, has been formally charged with sex trafficking her own disabled daughter after accepting money and cocaine in exchange for allowing men to rape the child, according to reports. 49-year-old Renee Collins' daughter, who has the mental age of a 2 to 3-year-old, was raped by multiple men in exchange for hard cash and drugs. Collins was charged Tuesday with second-degree trafficking of a child and first-degree child endangerment. Her boyfriend, 44-year-old William Thomas Jr. of Rochport, was also charged with rape. Oh, how disgusting. The court heard that the girl also have autism, is particularly deaf, and uses corrective leg braces. This is awful. She was taken into protective custody in July 2017 after authorities learned that her mother would loan her to men. Child trafficking and the normalization of pedophilia. As a child sex trafficking reaches epidemic levels, one expert has claimed that the moral fluidity and lack of truth is behind the problem. Expert and speaker Jacob Boyens, a director and producer whose sister was trafficked as a child, said the normalization of pedophilia and decline in morals are all having an effect on the rise of child sex trafficking. I was the guy looking for his sister. I was the guy who saw when she came home and she tried to commit suicide. I'm the guy who had to deal with it, me and my brother and my mom, Boyan said as the high school leadership summit. Now we have things such as this. Hey, there's some people that love to have sex with children. Deal with it, he said. No, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm going to fight it. Amen. That is what my mission is as well. Fight it. And may our Heavenly Father strike you with a curse that you can't get rid of. This has been Let's Chat with Betty Washam. Please leave your comments below. And I do go live at 9 p.m. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and God bless each and every one of you. Until next time, I'm out.
We've also had stories of parents jobbing their children out for sex here in Britain as well. We've got the Hampstead case that nobody can seem to put a handle on. We've got the Holly Gregg case up in Scotland, which is interesting. The father was abusing Holly. Mother didn't know. Mother's brother, Holly's uncle, came round and found Holly in bed with her dad. Obviously, brother told sister, her mum, and Holly's mum takes her away from the family home. Now, for her mother to be interviewed by the police, Holly had to have a social worker with her. When the social worker came round, Holly said, "He has been at my house as well, abusing me." So, this went on for years. A reporter tried to highlight the problem. He was put in jail to try and stop the story getting out. Holly went to court, and that was to see if she was fit to give evidence in court. She'd been abused when she was younger. She's now trying to put things right, and because she's got learning difficulties, they want to know if she's fit to give evidence. The court deemed that Holly was unfit to give evidence. Now, I've done a lot of youth work, and I've been involved with people with learning difficulties. Down syndrome children, or the majority of them, have not got the ability to lie. They don't know the concept of lying. So I personally would have listened to what Holly Gregg said, and I would have believed her. Anything she said is going to be true. Oh, it's just unbelievable. So, because she's now unfit to give evidence, court case dropped. Now the paedophile gets away with it. Let's take a little break, and we'll have some more Milking Blues. I am loving this band, and this is Vicious Smile. Brilliant blues band, absolutely incredible. You can I put a link here where you can find their music. Definitely worth getting. Milking Blues, absolutely brilliant band. I love the music. I got it playing in the car all the time. It's one of these ones that it really hooks you. Now, Betty's given me a note, and she says, tell them about your experience with shooting. Now, I started shooting, when I was 13, had an air rifle. Used to shoot the starlings off the strawberries in our market garden at home here. Now, when I was 15, I left school and had to get a job, and I started as an apprentice gunsmith with C.J. Tovey, which was a little workshop in Langford in Somerset. And we used to make single muzzle-loading underhammer shotguns. That was our thing. That was interesting. Unfortunately, he committed suicide. The firm closed, and I had to get another job. I'd been a year and a half into my apprenticeship, and I didn't know what was going to happen. Luckily, I.M. Crudgingtons in Bath, the gun makers, who owns George Gibbs in Bristol, took me on to finish my apprenticeship. I stayed there for 17 years, and while we were at Crudgingtons, we had Churchills. You've heard of Churchills in London. We had most of their outwork, doing sleeving, making new barrels. Now, we had a number of people in the workshop. There was Jim, was the stocker, Richard was the barrel man, and I did the actions. And between us, we did everything. We had apprentices come and go over those 17 years. But one thing we did have is the boss's collection. Now, Ian Crudgington, who owned the company, used to collect old English shotguns from 1860 to about 1900. He started off with pinfires, which are a little bit earlier, about 1850 to 1860, and then we moved from pinfire to centerfire in around about 1860, after Dawes invented the centerfire. Now, Ian was collecting the guns to write a book on the history and development of the British shotgun. He had every different patent of shotgun action you could imagine. And what would happen is, if the workshop got slow round about May, June, everybody stopped shooting for the winter. People had started clay shooting in the summer, and it we had a bit of a lull, May, June, so it was do one of the boss's guns. Now, the boss's guns could have been anything, mostly hammer guns, but going on to centerfire, going on to hammerless, I should say. Now, the guns were made and patented. And if you were a gun maker in the 1870s, 1880s, if you patent a type of lock or a type of mechanism that fired the cartridge, you could patent it. But people were designing things to get over the paint so they could make it. So in Birmingham and London, you had gun makers making every type of conceivable action ejector work that you can imagine. It was a thriving time for the gun trade, and if you didn't want to pay a patent for something that was used, you designed something different. For instance, the top lever. Now you had Scott top levers and you had Greener top levers, but Wesley Richards, they designed their own top lever and got over the patent. And this went on for years, different people designing different things. Ian Crudgington had, I would say 100, 200 shotguns. He had loads of them. Racks of these shotguns. And when it came time to photographing them, I had to take them to pieces, repair anything that was broken, then polish them up, ready for photographing. Ian would get them photographed, and then I'd put the guns back together. And I did this for 17 years. And if you take Ian Crudgington's and Mr. Baker's books, which are in 3 volumes called The British Shotgun, I can safely say 75% of the guns in those books I've worked on. I'd get a gun in pieces, where somebody had taken it to pieces and just given it to Ian Crudgington saying, oh, we can't do anything with it, do you want it? And he'd say, yeah. I'd get a bag of bits, I'd have to put the gun together, find out what bits were missing, and if they were missing, make them. That's how I did my apprenticeship. I learnt so much of how guns were made, how they put them together. It was a real education. My trade within the gun trade was a jointer, putting barrels onto actions and rejointing guns. Mostly rejointing. We had another guy that used to joint for us, so I didn't do a lot of jointing, putting new barrels on guns, but I did a lot of jointing, putting barrels back onto the face and tightening them up. Making parts, making anything that was broken, repair it, making springs. A lot of the shotguns, you couldn't go out and just buy a spring off the shelf like you can with Winchesters or Remingtons. You had to make the replacement because there wasn't any available in the shops, or in the wholesalers I should say. So I started making guns, and my part was the actions, filing actions up for new guns, and doing a little bit of stock work. And as time went on, I do more and more myself. Then we had Hungerford, and the gun trade went as flat as a pancake. I was earning a third of the money I was earning before, and unfortunately I had to pay the mortgage. So needs must, I had to go and get another job. So I got a couple of factory jobs for a few years. I made car parts and I made kitchen units. Then I was made unemployed, and I was unemployed for 3 months. And during that time I did a lot of pigeon shooting and wrote articles for magazines. Now I'd been writing for Countryman's Weekly for 3 or 4 years by now, and they took some pigeon shooting articles off me. And Gunmark, the other shooting magazine in Britain, wanted me to do a series of educational articles on how to do pigeon shooting, how to decoy pigeons. So I did 8 months, over a whole year, I had 8 months worth of pigeon shooting articles for Gunmark. I was also writing for Countryman's Weekly, where I was doing reports on the shows. Like you get in the States, you get state fairs. In England, we get country shows, county shows, and I was involved in the country sports side, fishing, shooting, hunting. So I'd write on hounds, I'd write on fishing, I'd write on shooting, all sorts of things. Anybody that was interested to talk to, I put them in. And then I got a job back in the trade, and I started working for Roxton's. Now Roxton's had a shop in Hungerford, and they also had a shop in Cirencester, and I went to the Cirencester shop, and I worked there for 8 years in Cirencester, and then the shop closed down, and I've got my workshop now at home, and I've had this now for 10 years, and I just repair shotguns. I've got a stocker that works for me, and I've got a barrel man that works for me. Old friends that I've known for years and years in the trade. But I do a lot of checkering, handwork, checkering English gun stocks. And I do about 2 or 3 a week. So there's, it's time consuming. It's easy to do, just file the lines out. But it's time consuming, and there's a knack in it, and I just seem to have the knack. So, I've done a lot of pigeon shooting. I've been in the gun trade now for 45 years. And one of the questions that Betty had been asked by one of her supporters is, how do I know so much about the lead, and why was I involved in the lead campaign? Well, it happens that I was on the Deer Initiative in Britain, which is a NGO to advise the government on deer management. I'm not a stalker, but I've been around stalking and gamekeepers all my life, and I understand a little bit about what's going on. So I'm on the British Deer Initiative, and somebody called John Swift is one of the trustees of the Deer Initiative. And at one meeting in May 2010, John Swift, who was the head of Basque, he was the CEO of Basque, turned up and said that the lead was unintendable. There was no need for us to use lead, and we had to find alternatives. My hackles went up. My deer stalking mate next to me said, I thought you were going to jump over the stale and flatten him. Well, you've got the leader of the largest shooting organisation in Britain, and he's advocating losing lead. That was my implication of what he was telling us. He'd just been made chairman of the lead ammunition group. Now, I was told quietly that Basque was working with the WWT, which is the Wildlife and Wetland Trust, and the RSPB, trying to get lead banned. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that Basque would do that. They were my organisation. I'd been in it for 40 years. But unfortunately, the evidence tend to side that it was right. Unfortunately, I put in a Freedom of Information request to get the minutes of the steering group, which was a committee set up before the lead ammunition group was set up with John Swift as chairman, and it goes through there. They're trying to find out who uses lead illegally. Now, why would you as a shooting organisation be trying to find out who's using lead illegally? Now, like in America, it's illegal to shoot duck and wildfowl with lead. Now, and we've got to use steel. I also found out that the ballistics on steel didn't match the results I was getting. I was the only one who'd done an independent test on steel shot, and I found it 20% less effective than lead. I did a comparison. I got phone books. I made a jig up so they were all held the same density, and we shot with lead and we shot with steel, and we found that steel was 20% less effective than lead as a comparison. And I was poo-pooed. He's not a scientist. He don't know what he's talking about. We have to have scientific proof. Well, what they were doing was creating that proof. I believe, my allegation is that the WWT, the RSPB and BASC were working, colluding, and if you want to call it a conspiracy, you can, together to try and get lead banned. Now, the WWT would write a paper, and one of the group would take the lead authorship. So you have all these reports with different names on. You had the Comey report, the Payne report, and all different names, but it was the same group of people, and they would write a report on lead shot, and they would also quote other works that they'd written and other works that part of the group had written. And in a lot of the WWT papers, it always thanked Dr. Harradine of BASC for his help. And in a couple of the papers, he was actually named as a co-author. This is the shooting organisation that's set up to defend shooting. And they're now trying to find the evidence to kill us. So I did some digging, I did some writing, I wrote 2 articles which you can find on Facebook, on the Save Our Lead Shot page. All the information I have is on there, all the evidence I have is on there. I went to London and I went to see Sir Barney Spunner of the Countryside Alliance. He understood what I was saying, and he was on the lead ammunition group, and he walked. If he hadn't walked, we would have lost lead. Now, if you're in America, you've got the same problem. Lead has been removed on bad science, and it's the same type of science they're using for global warming. Scientists get money for research, so they do the research that pays the money. What they do is they got an outcome they want, and then they find the science to fit it. It's not science, it's pseudoscience. And it's the same with lead shot. It's bogus science. There's no real scientific proof at all. And it's the same as global warming and lead shot. Now, you've lost lead for shooting duck, and you've now got to use steel. The first thing to look at is the ballistics of steel. It does not match up. Now, I'm not saying you can't shoot and kill something with steel, but it just isn't as good as lead. And lead isn't the problem that it's made out to be. I think it needs looking at again, and it needs real scientists to look at it. I'm just a gunsmith. I'm nobody, as they say. So the only way we can battle against this is to have real scientists look at it and do some real research. There was some research done in France on 3 lakes in Normandy, and the article that I read referring to the looking at the duck that had ingested lead was that it was much to do about nothing. That's what they called the article. They said the duck were flying quite happy until they were killed, until they were shot. They found a few duck with lead in the gizzards, but they didn't think it was affecting them at all. And I've just had a new article given me from New Zealand, and it says exactly the same thing as well. So, that is why I got involved in the lead shot debate, and in the end I won, but with some help, I tell you. And if it wasn't for Sir Barney Spunner of the Countryside Alliance, we would have lost lead altogether. Now, the lead ammunition group in Britain is still going. It's still run by John Swift. Don't know who's paying him, but it's the WWT and RSPB that are the runners of it. And that's basically my story. Betty, I hope that's all right for you. I know I can't come back and talk to you, but we'll have another piece of music. This is Steve Lee, and as we're talking about guns, I like guns.
Well, I like guns, I like the way they look. I like the shiny steel and the polished wood.
Oh, I love Steve Lee. Brilliant band. And I like guns. I've actually got it as a ringtone on my phone. Everybody's got all sorts of different things on their phone, but I like guns. Brilliant. Now, Betty, what's Hillary been up to again?
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Let's Chat with Betty Washam. Yes, it is that time. I'm your host, Betty Washam. And I found something. Boy, Clinton is just everywhere right now. Let's go through this and see what's happening. It says, former Clinton analyst explains double standard in campaign funding violations. He argued that Hillary Clinton investigating Russia collusion was a campaign expenditure, while President Trump allegedly paying off Stormy Daniels was not. Well, we know that Cohen and Stormy Daniels had an affair, and that Donald Trump did not even sign that pay, $130,000 to her. It was all a setup, and that's why he's in trouble right now, because Donald Trump had nothing to do with it. Actually, that's what really happened. Look at her nasty, evil, pedophile face. I can't even stand her. The very possibility that President Donald Trump and anyone affiliated with him has been under attack more than Democrats have ever been is high on the list of every increasing liberal denials, specifically related to the campaign funding violations. President Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, has been under recent scrutiny. That's a good thing, actually. However, a former pollster for both former President Bill Clinton and the presidential candidate Hillary Clinton released an opinion piece explaining why Hillary should be the one under investigation, not Cohen. He further reveals the horrific double standard surrounding both situations, arguing that now President Trump paying off adult entertainer Stormy Daniels was not a campaign funding violation. Exactly, because he didn't pay him, Cohen did. The Clinton expert Mark Penn published his piece for The Hill Wednesday, outlining why President Trump's alleged attempt to silence Daniels was done so out of personal reasons and could not be considered campaign expenditure. But the problem is that people don't know the real story. It'll come out though. She was actually at the NXBIM parties and stuff. I mean, you guys gotta start going past what the illusion is. Cram the red pill down your throat. I give you a prescription for 3 times a day because I think 3 times a day you need a red pill. And if you can't swallow it, chew it up. Initially, notable President Trump and his former lawyer had allegedly been attempting to obtain such an agreement since 2011, making it considerably unrelated to his 2016 presidential run. Penn contrasted this with Hillary Clinton hiring spices to do opposition research into Russia collusion. So Trump spends $130,000 to keep the lid on a personal story, and the full weight of state prosecutors comes down on his lawyer, tossing attorney-client privilege to the wind. He wrote, Democrats spend potentially millions on secret opposition research, and no serious criminal investigation occurs. But you guys will see what's going on with Cohen, what's going on with Paul Manafort. You'll eventually see. Further, Penn compared President Trump's situation to that of a candidate with poor teeth as an example. Boy, this guy's an idiot. Explaining that, of course, such an individual would seek to clear his image by obtaining dental work to look better for the campaign, which could not be written off as a campaign expense. Trump has plenty of money to do his own. Trump is the one that paid for his campaign. These people are nuts. However, just as President Trump sought to disassociate himself from the porn star, Penn explains that just because it would be helpful to the campaign does not convert it to a campaign expenditure. He further called the attempt to suggest otherwise to be a bogus approach to suggest that the president violated Federal Election Commission laws, citing that donors of the 2012 John Edward cases were not held in contempt of such laws and were also not considered campaign contributions. He further claimed that the attempt to tarnish Edwards then was unsuccessful then, just as such an attempt again would be today. Also, according to the former corrupt Clintons, Penn noted that desperate Cohen had pled guilty to the campaign fraud. Former President Bill Clinton's acquittal sent a firm message that we are not going to remove presidents for lying about who they had affairs with, nor even convict politicians on campaign violations for these personal payments. Conversely, Clinton's campaign paid out money to political research firm Fusion GPS and British spy Christopher Steele without listing them on a campaign expenditure form, despite crystal clear law and regulations that the ultimate beneficiaries of the fund must be listed. Penn explains that the reason for such a double standard is that the Russian spy efforts did not get Trump as far as successfully proving any conspiracy. The former pollster further noted that the attack against Cohen includes manufactured crimes in what is naked attempt to take Trump down and defeat democracy. Unfortunately, that is what is ultimately at risk in the never-ending attacks against the president, despite that the American people voted him into office. And that's exactly correct. Penn further expresses that for this reason, it is the utmost important who President Trump chooses to entrust his affairs with. As seen with Cohen, an aide who appears or proves dishonest can negatively affect the president's reputation, which is constantly under liberal scrutiny. Ain't that the truth? Remember the fire, though, at Trump Towers. All this goes hand in hand. He concluded by saying that the continuing investigations into President Trump's aides and lawyers are nothing more than a witch hunt to find anything that could be colored into a crime. Penn expresses again that the payments to Stormy Daniels were not a criminal violation, again citing FEC laws. Forcing involved individuals, he continues, into guilty confessions does not make White House officials actually guilty of their crimes. Unfortunately, this appears of no concern to anti-Trump officials. And even worse, converse suggests that simply because Hillary Clinton was not investigated for her Russia schemes to the extent that the President Trump has been, does not necessarily determine her innocence. While leftists may continue to argue that Trump administration is the corrupt party, proof of Clinton's campaign funding violation actually exists in that of the Steele dossier, which has proven to be a liberal fairy tale that President Trump opposers appear to be clinging onto as their only source of proof against the commander-in-chief. Yes, it is important to consider how the dossier came to be, with the answer leading right back to the Clinton Foundation. Thankfully for the integrity of all American citizens, their elected president did not use his associated campaign in such a ridiculous and legal attempt to bring down another candidate. No, that is because we have the utmost respect President of the United States that now we are not made fools of anymore, and people are actually having to pay us back for everything that they owe us, and we don't let them walk all over us. And I have seen more human trafficking, more child sex trafficking rings than you could imagine underneath President Trump's law. Now, military tribunals start in January 2019. Don't worry, all of these people are going down. But right now, they got to gather all their evidence, get everything together, and eventually I'll come out and explain the Paul Manafort, the Cohen, and everything else. Eventually, I'll come out and explain it. But this has been Let's Chat with Betty Washam. Mwah. God bless each and every one of you. And if you have any comments, please leave them in the section below. And until next time, I'm out.
It seems that every day when you look at YouTube, somebody comes up with a new allegation of what the Clintons have been up to. Somebody's got a death list of all the people they allege the Clintons have been involved in the murders of. Don't know if it's true, it's just allegations, but the list gets longer and longer. Seth Rich being one, allegedly supposed to have been killed by MS-13 agents, which is a gang in the States. It's just unbelievable. If half the stories are true, why is Hillary not in the police station answering to her crimes? And why is she not in court defending herself against these crimes? I know. There must be so much money involved and so many people watching their back that it's almost that they're too big to indict. I don't know what's going to happen in the States. I don't know if they're going to catch up with Hillary. As we heard earlier, the Chinese hacked the Clinton server that was a private server that she never should have had. Even that's enough to get her indicted. But anyway, that's up to you in the States. You've got to sort that one out. Now, Comey, ex-FBI, and Betty, you found something that says he was lying.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it is that time. It's time for Let's Chat with Betty Washam. I'm Betty Washam, your host, and what we're going to chat about today is the emails of Hillary Clinton. Now, this is pretty interesting, so we're going to go through it real quick. And if I read wrong or whatever, just know that I have a brain injury, and I sometimes my words even stumble, whenever I'm talking. But I'm trying to bring you the best substance that I can. It says hundreds of thousands emails found on Weiner laptop weren't examined, rebuking Comey's claim. Comey claimed Weiner's laptop was thoroughly analyzed by investigators, but a new report indicates that is far from the truth. Yeah, we already know he's a criminal. He needs to go to Gitmo. I can't wait. Look at that nasty Piece of crap. Fired FBI Director James Comey prematurely closed the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server based on political motivations and lied to the American people when he claimed the Bureau had reviewed all the communications found on Anthony Weiner's laptop. According to Real Clear Investigations, and unsurprising to many, there's largely a media blackout on this bombshell report. Of course, because you know they own the media. The damaging report from RCI's Paul Sperry makes the compelling argument that evidence appears to show Comey closed the investigation before investigators had reviewed a vast majority of the communications on Weiner's laptop, many of which featured classified information from Clinton and on her top ally, Uma Abedin, who was married to Weiner and recently filed a divorce after he pleaded guilty to sending sexually explicit text messages to a minor. Sperry's premise is simple. How did the FBI review and analyze hundreds of thousands of emails found on Weiner's laptop in just a few weeks? Yeah, we'd like to know that. According to a lengthy investigation report from Sperry, they didn't, and evidence appears to show that Comey assuring the American public that a thorough investigation was completed is a complete lie. Sperry reports, Comey later told Congress that thanks to the wizardry of our technology, the FBI was able to eliminate the vast majority of messages as duplicates of emails they'd previously seen. Tireless agents, he claimed, then worked night after night after night to scrutinize the remaining material. But virtually none of his account was true, a growing body of evidence reveals. In fact, a technical glitch prevented FBI technicians from accurately comparing the new emails with the old emails. Only 3,077 of the 695,000 emails were directly reviewed for classified or incriminating information. 3 FBI officials completed that work in a single 12-hour spurt, the day before Comey again cleared Clinton of criminal charges. What a piece of shit. Sperry draws attention to the fact that the extremely narrow review of just a tiny portion of the emails found that Clinton and Abedin had sent and received countless emails that contained classified information. In fact, many of the classified emails found on Weiner's laptop were traced back to Clinton's private email server, which Comey admitted was hidden in the basement of her home and also had hundreds of emails with classified information on it. Contradicting Comey's testimony, this includes highly sensitive information dealing with Israel and the U.S. designated terrorist group Hamas, Sperry reports. The former Secretary of State, however, was never confronted with the sensitive new information, and it was never analyzed for damage to national security. Yeah, because they were all in on it. So Abedin and Clinton were sending and receiving classified emails from State Department computers to Clinton's unsecured email server and Weiner's private, also non-secure laptop. How nice. Lying bastards. And the FBI found a ton of classified emails on Weiner's laptop in the small fractions of records that they did analyze. Imagine how many more possibly incriminating emails could have been found if Comey allowed investigators to do their job and review all the information. Sperry also notes that the FBI allegedly never referred to the matter to U.S. intelligence agencies, which is required by federal law. Can't wait for him to go to Gitmo. Even though the unique classified material was improperly stored and transmitted an unsecured device, the FBI did not refer the matter to U.S. intelligence agencies to determine if national security had been compromised, as required under a federally mandated damage assessment directive. The newly discovered classified material was never previously sent out to the relevant original classification authorities for security review. The official who spoke to Real Clear Investigations on the condition of anonymity said, Sperry rounds out his bombshell report by revealing that critical aspects of the investigation remained open when Comey prematurely announced that he was wrapping it up in front of Congress just prior to the 2016 presidential election. One career FBI special agent involved in the case complained to New York colleagues that officials in Washington tried to bury the new trove of evidence, which he believed contained the full archive of Clinton's emails, including long-sought missing messages from her first months at the State Department, Sperry writes. There was no real investigation and no real search, said FBI veteran Michael Biasello. It was all just show, eyewash, to make it look like there was an investigation before the election. So what does this all mean? Sperry's report makes a strong case that Comey concluded the Bureau's investigation into Weiner's laptop just a few weeks into the probe. And in the tiny fractions of emails, the agency did a review. They found several emails from Clinton and Aberdeen that contained classified information. Many argue that Comey closed the investigation because the election was less than 2 weeks away, and he didn't want it to harm Clinton's campaign, who he more than likely believed was going to win and become the next president. It would appear that he abused his power, closed an investigation before it was even close to being concluded, and gave Clinton and Aberdeen a pass for breaking the law and mishandling classified information because he apparently wanted to protect Clinton. Imagine that. Wherever it might be, there could be a treasure trove of evidence of Clinton and her allies potentially committing serious federal crimes, ranging from obstruction of justice to espionage, and Comey apparently never allowed the Bureau to make that determination. These are my thoughts. He's a career criminal, has been for many years. It's almost unfathomable to where we don't even want to trust the FBI anymore. Look how many people have been force fired. It was like this deep ocean was running our whole entire country and telling us pretty much to F off. And when one kid actually accidentally sent a picture of the submarine ship that he was in, in the Navy, he went to prison. I think it was like a 10-year sentence, and he just got out. And I think he ended up spending 2 to 3 years or something like that. So why is Hillary Clinton and Uma Abedin and James Comey and McCabe and all of the rest of them above the law? I don't think that they are. I think that Gitmo is definitely waiting for them, and I think that they're over. It's over. It's just a matter of time. I believe that arrests will start happening in 2019, because in 2019 is when the military tribunal, military tribunal actually takes effect. So I believe that that's why they went to HRC's Clinton Foundation, and they had 757 Bowens, and they actually went 3 times because someone that I know lives there, and saw them 3 times gathering information and stuff. So they're getting ready for this case. And I know in April that Congress asked for the Clinton email investigations to be reopened, and there was a couple of other people that I had already done a report on. So this has been Let's Chat with Betty Washam. Mwah. I'm out. Until next time. God bless each and every one of you. Please leave your comments below. Thank you and have a great day.
Okay, that's the end of our little show for today. If you want to see more of Betty's videos, they're available on YouTube on Let's Chat with Betty Washam. She's got some very interesting articles on there that she's done. If you want to know, Betty's got some new t-shirts. We put an advert in the last video, and if you want a link, we'll put a link below so that you can go and have a look at the t-shirts. She's got all sorts of different things written on it, but they're good quality, and by the looks of them they will last. As you can see, I'm dressed in my real tree camo today. I'm off pigeon shooting now, and I'm got a farmer. He says he got pigeons screaming into his field. He got some grain. The rain we've had has flattened the grain, and they're eating the corn, and he can't get on it to combine it until it dries out. So I'm off to protect his crop and do some pigeon shooting. Goodbye to everyone, and may your God go with you.